In this lesson, we'll continue our discussion of the male reproductive system by taking a look at the reproductive ducts. We'll take a look at some ductwork that's within the testes. Then we'll take a look at the epididymis, which is kind of this comma-shaped structure that's on top of the testicle, and alongside of it, we'll take a look at the Vas Deferens or the Ductus Deferens, the ejaculatory ducts in the male pelvis, and then we'll finish up with the urethra. So let's take a look at the ductwork in the testes. So if you remember from the last lesson, the tubes that made the sperm were known as the seminiferous tubules. From there, let's follow it. I'm going to skip the verbiage here for a second. I'm going to take you to a picture where we have the testicle. Just to kind of review from the last lesson, this white tissue on the outside, even though it's blue in this picture, in real life this would be white. This is known as the tunica albuginea. This is the tough fibrous connective tissue. Remember that it projects collagen fibers to the inside. These white lines going in would be the septa, right? And they're forming these compartments known as the lobules. And within the lobules are the seminiferous tubules, right? They're going to be the seminiferous tubules. So we want to take a look at the first ductwork. Once this seminiferous tubule makes the sperm, see these lines that are running straight? Right here, they're running straight, they're running straight. Those three on this picture here, 1, 2, and 3, are known as the straight tubules. Okay, the straight tubules are going to receive the sperm from the seminiferous tubules. They're going to then lead to this kind of round network of tubes. This is known as the ready testes, right? The ready testes. From there, we're going to see these tubes that are going to leave the testicle, and they're about to enter this big structure here. These tubes that are leaving the testicle are known as the efferent ductules, right? Think of efferent as leaving something. So the sperm at this point are going to leave the ready testes, go into the efferent ductules, and then they're going to enter the epididymis. Okay, so from the ready testes, the sperm moves from the efferent ducts into the epididymis, that empty into a single tube, the ductus epididymis. Okay, so again, these beginning here would be the beginning of the epididymis. So all of this tube work is going to be in the epididymis, and that's going to be our next structure. All right, the epididymis actually starts the male reproductive tract. It's a comma-shaped structure. If you uncoiled it, it would be about 20 feet in length, and we'll see it on the posterior border of each testes. And like I said, the epididymis has this coiled tubes that are inside of it. There's three parts to the epididymis that we want to take a look at. So this top part, it's kind of on the top of the testicle, is known as the head. This main part that runs along the side is the body. This is the body. And then at the bottom here, this is going to be the tail. All right, so this area here is the tail. And notice it's the tail that's going to lead to the vas deferens. So at this point, we have mature sperm, viable mature sperm that are going to be carried up the vas deferens into the pelvis. Okay, so head is the top part. The body would be the middle part. And then this bottom part over here is going to be the tail. Okay. So the function of the epididymis is to monitor and adjust the fluid produced by the seminiferous tubules. It's going to help to recycle any sperm that's been damaged, and it's going to store and protect the sperm and facilitate their functional maturation. So this is really the final place that the sperm is maturing. All right, this is a great picture. So again, what we've done so far, from the seminiferous tubules, the sperm is going to go through the straight tubules into the ready testes, that's this whole network here, through the efferent ductules into the epididymis. The epididymis has a head up on top. The body runs along the side of the testes, and at the bottom of the testes is the tail, right? And at this point we should have viable mature tail. So the next structure we want to look at is going to be the ductus Deferens, right? And you can say Vas Deferens. I've seen Ductus Deferentia. There's a bunch of different terms for it. Roughly, the Vas Deferens or the Ductus Deferens is about 18 inches in length, and it's going to ascend through the spermatic cord into the pelvic cavity. I actually mentioned in the previous lesson the inguinal canal. What we want to do now is take a look at the spermatic cord, which is in the inguinal canal. If we go to a picture, just to kind of refresh, here's the testes, here's the epididymis. You can see the head up on top. This would be the body going down the side. We don't see the tail on it, but coming from the bottom where the tail is, this white tube right here is going to be the vas deferens. But I want to show you what are these other structures that are inside the spermatic cord. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Let me just make sure I got everything here. So the spermatic cord is the supporting structure that ascends out of the scrotum. It passes through the inguinal canal, as we mentioned earlier, and our passageways that actually go through the abdominal musculature. They actually go through our abdominal musculature. And we had mentioned from the previous lesson, they form during the development as the testes descended into the scrotum during the 7th month of fetal life. So the things that we should be able to see if we were doing dissection or in the lab is going to be the vas deferens, and then you're going to see a couple blood vessels. There's two arteries. There's the deferential artery and the testicular artery. They're bringing the blood down into the testicle. And then there's the Piniform Plexus of the testicular vein. So what I wanted to show you is this. I just think this is so interesting. You can see, watch this, the two arteries coming down. This red one right here is the testicular artery, and then the other one over here is the deferential artery. They're carrying arterial blood into the testes. Now remember, arterial blood is probably warm because it's coming from inside the male body, and we want to make sure that the testicle stays a couple degrees less temperature. So we don't really want warm blood going into the testicle. So watch this. Notice the vein of the testicular vein is called the piniform plexus. See how it forms a network around the testicular artery? By being like this, these veins actually draw out heat, actually cool down the blood in the testicular artery so that the blood going into the testicle is not quite as warm, right? So from a survival point of view, from an evolutionary survival point of view, that piniform plexus developed to cool some of the blood going down into the testicle. I just think that's interesting. Okay, so vas deferens, the red one here, testicular artery, deferential artery, piniform plexus of the testicular vein, and then these yellow lines right here are some of the nerves that come down from our lumbar plexus and from the lumbar spinal cord. They're known as the genitofemoral nerve, right? So they're bringing nerve supply down into the testicle. Okay, we also have some lymph vessels. They're not really shown on our diagram, and then we had mentioned from a previous lesson, covering all of this is the cremaster muscle. Remember, the cremaster muscle was on the testicle. It goes up the spermatic cord and it goes right to the floor of the pelvis. Okay, so that's the spermatic cord, all the structures you should know. Now that ductus deferens is going to make its way up. Let's see, let's show you here for a second. So from this picture, this is a good picture. This is a sagittal picture. We have the testes. Here's the comma-shaped epididymis, head, body, tail, and then the ductus deferens comes off of that. So watch this, guys. It comes up through the scrotal cavity, up the spermatic cord, like right about here. But then it actually goes right under the skin of the abdomen. Here's the pubic bone, goes over the pubic bone and then enters the pelvis. It goes over the urinary bladder all the way to the back of the urinary bladder, around the ureter, which is bringing urine down from the kidney, and then it ends right here as a swelling. This is known as the ampulla of the vas deferens. So look how long it is. It's going all the way from the bottom of the scrotum all the way up the spermatic cord to the outside of the pubic bone. It's actually palpable right here. over the urinary bladder, around the ureter, and then back around the back of the bladder here, where it ends as an expansion, which we're going to see is known as the ampulla. Okay, so in the pelvic cavity, it loops over the ureter and passes over the side and down the back of the urinary bladder. I do want you to know the ampulla is that dilated or swollen terminal portion of the ductus deferens. The ductus deferens itself, from a histology point of view, is lined by pseudostratified columnar epithelium, and that pseudostratified columnar epithelium has cilia on it, and that cilia helps to move the sperm. The ductus deferens itself actually has these peristaltic contractions, similar to what we see in the digestive system to move food. These peristaltic contractions help to propel the sperm. And the sperm the ductus deferens can actually keep the sperm in there for several months. It can stay there for quite some time. Okay, let me just make sure we got everything. Yeah. So that's our ductus deferens, right? Good picture here, seeing it. And this is a good picture too, just kind of showing the way it travels. Now, let's take a look now at the ejaculatory ducts. This would be the next duct in line. Each ejaculatory duct is formed by the union of a duct from a gland that we're going to look at in the next lesson, called the seminal vesicle, and where that duct meets the ampulla of the ductus deferens. If we go here for a second, so just to kind of give you an idea, right where my cursor is, that is the ampulla of the ductus deferens. So take a look at this structure here. This is a gland we're going to look at in the next lesson, called the seminal gland or the seminal vesicle. And here's the duct from the seminal vesicle. So notice, guys, it's going to join with the duct of the vas deferens. These two ducts join together and form this duct right here. That's what we're talking about right now. That duct is the ejaculatory duct. Again, it's from the union of the vas deferens and the seminal gland. And then that ejaculatory duct is going to lead down into the last structure we're going to talk about in this lesson, known as the urethra. So this is a good picture also. This is a posterior view of the urinary bladder. These two tubes here and here coming down from the kidney are the ureters, and this is the vas deferens coming around the ureter on the left. Here's the vas deferens coming around the ureter on the right. Here's the ampulla. Here's the ampulla on this one. So remember, we said that the seminal gland will unite with the vas deferens and form right here is the ejaculatory duct. Here's the ejaculatory duct, and then the sperm from the vas deferens and the seminal fluid here are going to go into that ejaculatory duct. Then we'll see that the prostate gland, we'll do this in the next lesson, also put some fluid, and everything will mix right in here. This is the urethra, and then the semen at this point will go down the urethra. All right, so this is a really good picture showing the union of the vas deferens, the seminal gland, forming the ejaculatory duct. Again, on this picture, it's here. Vas deferens, where my cursor is, seminal gland, and a good picture of the ejaculatory duct. Okay, the last tube for this lesson is the urethra. This is a tube that is shared with the urinary system. So from the reproductive standpoint, this is where semen is leaving the male body. And then from a urinary standpoint, this is where urine is going to leave. It's approximately 8 inches in length. It's going to pass through the prostate gland. The perineum, if you just want to jot down, is the pelvic floor, and then it's going to be in the penis. We're going to see that there are 3 regions to the urethra. So watch this. Here's the urinary bladder. When it comes down, the urethra here, that tube, and that's where the ejaculatory duct is coming in. This urethra in the prostate gland, this is the prostate gland, that urethra right there is known as the prostatic urethra. Then follow my cursor right here. That muscle is the pelvic floor. That urethra going through the pelvic floor, see how thin it is, how small it is? It's just in the pelvic floor. That is the membranous urethra. And then finally, guys, the remaining urethra that's in the penis, we can call either the penile urethra, because it's in the penis, or since it's in some erectile tissue known as the corpora spongiosum, we can call it the spongy urethra. Your option, right? So you can call it the penile urethra, again, this whole tube, or the spongy urethra. Right? So three parts to the male urethra: prostatic in the prostate gland, membranous in the floor of the pelvis, right? That's the perineum. And then the remaining part in the penis is going to be the penile or spongy urethra. All right, so those are the ductwork on the of the male reproductive system. In our next lesson, we'll take a look at the accessory glands.